When we decide to abstain from a certain behaviour, when we decide to get into recovery, and in this video I'm going to speak specifically about gambling, but this does refer to other negative and potentially harmful behaviours as well. We often use the expression we're giving something up. We're giving up gambling, we're giving up alcohol, we're giving up whatever. And the expression giving up has its certain connotations. It sounds like we're actually foregoing something that has some benefit or at least some level of pleasure to us. And actually this can raise psychological barriers when it comes to getting into a lasting recovery. If we truly believe that we are having to give something up, it conjures up an idea of deprivation, that we are depriving ourselves of something from which we obtain something positive. Now, this might not be positive in a constructive way, but it could certainly be positive in terms of pleasure or happiness, relaxation, or whatever other feelings and sensations we associate with whatever vice this happens to be. One of the key mental barriers I find when it comes to abstaining from anything that is potentially harmful is the effect that we believe it may have on our social lives and on our friendship groups and our relationships with other people. This was most pronounced when I recently made the decision to abstain from drinking for 100 days. The first mental and psychological barrier wasn't anything to do with the alcohol, it was the impact it would have on my social life and on the relationships of those people that I spent a lot of time around alcohol with. It's not specific to the UK, but particularly in the UK, a lot of our social interactions are based around alcohol. So by extracting that one element, we feel that the rest of our social interactions and our friendship group is going to suffer. And the same to some extent can be said for gambling. And that is, like I say, what I want to talk about in today's video. Firstly, I just want to say thanks for clicking on this video. Hope you're keeping safe, hope you're keeping sane. Thank you to everyone who's decided to support me through Patreon. I'll put a link in the description. Because people are now starting to sign up and the community over on Patreon is building, I've started to put some additional content on there, weekly discussions, the additional videos, personal responses to DMs, all that sort of thing. So if you do want to support me in that way and get a little bit extra from the channel, then click the link in the description below. If not, and you think this content's useful, helpful or interesting, then just support me in the normal YouTuber-y kind of ways by clicking subscribe, liking and commenting and doing all that sort of great stuff. So when I decided to get into a gambling recovery, I had to take stock of the impact this would have on my life. Now, because it feels like such a significant change, we often exaggerate in our own minds the effect it's going to have and the negative impact it's going to have on our lives. Now, we are fed time and time again through YouTube and other information we can find online and in person. We're fed all the benefits that come from abstaining from an addiction. We are told that when we quit gambling, we'll have more money, we'll have less stress, we'll have more time, and all of these things are of course true. But our conscious mind, and also, dare I say, the gambling part of our brain, does throw up these objections. So what I want to talk about is the impact that quitting gambling can have on your friendships and on your relationships. When you quit gambling, you'll decide that, in the short term at least, it makes sense to not surround yourself with opportunities to gamble. And this may involve abstaining from seeing people and spending time with friends that also gamble. I know that when I stopped gambling, there was a period of time where I made the decision not to spend time with those friends whose often our social interactions, our nights out or whatever, would be in bars or casinos or going to bookies and all these sorts of things where gambling is likely to occur. It's a very, very sensible decision to, in the early stages of recovery, abstain from putting yourselves in positions where temptation is likely to get the better of you, where urges are likely to occur. You may think that you're strong enough to stand at a fruit machine next to your mate in the pub while he has a go, and not have the desire to have a go yourself. And maybe willpower will stand out. But there will be a likelihood that you may think, oh, a quick tenner of my own won't hurt, and you'll start playing the machine next to them. Maybe they'll want to pop in the bookies and put their football bets down for the weekend. And they'll go in and maybe they'll start playing the fob tee and you'll think, oh, just a quick tenner, that won't hurt. And any small amount of gambling can quite easily, as we know, spiral into a lapse, a relapse and complete financial destruction. So it's sensible in the early stages of recovery to avoid those situations, which may mean avoiding certain people. It may turn out that some of the people that you associate with because of your gambling, you have very, very little in common with, and they're not really friends as such as they are gambling friends, and I've spoken about this in a previous video. Two things will allow you to make this differentiation in the short to medium term after you decide to get into recovery. Firstly is the interaction and the support you receive from these friends. If you speak to someone and they are supportive, they are understanding, and they are, stop short of saying congratulatory, but they are positive about your decision to get into recovery, then it might be that you have more in common with these people and they do actually have your best interests at heart. They may have seen the destruction and the stress and the problems in your life that gambling is causing, and maybe subconsciously they have been waiting for you to acknowledge this, waiting for you to make the decision to get into recovery, and they are pleased that you have finally reached that point in your life, and they are happy to support you in whatever fashion that might come in your recovery. If they don't, if the people around you put up resistance to your decision to abstain from gambling or alcohol or whatever it is, it might be that they're either severe addicts themselves, in which case they don't want to see you recover because that then makes them address their addiction. It also makes them feel worse about their own behaviours because, well, this person's getting out of this situation, and they want to drag you back in to help reinforce their own circle of support. But it might be that actually you didn't have an awful lot in common in the first place other than the mutual addiction or the mutual behaviour that you're trying to escape from. And that's really the second thing. After a short period of time of abstinence and recovery, if you do decide to avoid these people with whom you have this addiction in common, or these people with whom you do surround yourself in pubs or arcades or whatever, if you find yourself still wanting to spend time with these people, then it might be that you have a far deeper bond, a deeper friendship than merely the superfluous gambling. If, however, you find that you don't miss these people, if you do see them in passing or you have any kind of interaction with them that you have very, very little to talk about, it might be that they were less real friends and more just sort of either mutual addicts, or that you used each other as sort of a support network or an affirmation, so to speak, of your own behaviours. And, well, you're doing it, so I'm doing it. So actually we have a mutual friendship, a mutual interest. And that's allowing you to sort of bury your head in the sand and just ignore the fact this is actually causing you quite a lot of harm in so many respects. So I would say, when you first decide to get into a recovery, yes, avoid people with whom you spend time gambling. But don't make any rash decisions. Don't message people and say, I can never see you again because I've decided to quit gambling. Don't cut people off, because those people could potentially be very supportive of your recovery and become part of your support network. However, if in time you realise that is all you had in common, then it might be that you do have to distance yourself from certain people in your lives. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be any animosity. It doesn't have to be a horrible thing to do. But it might just be that at certain points in your life you do have to move on and leave certain people behind. This is difficult with friendships, but if it's a romantic relationship, then obviously this takes on a whole new level. Again, very similar things apply. If you find yourself with your partner gambling, if you think that whenever you both get some spare time together, when you're not working, or if you have kids, when the kids are away or whatever, when you find it's just you and your partner together, what do you do? If you do a whole multitude of things and occasionally you have a little gamble together, then it might be, that they will be supportive of you and you'll continue your relationship in probably a more productive and more, positive way. If, however, as soon as you have that available time together, the first thing you decide you're going to do is indulge in gambling, or indeed in any kind of vice, it might be that not only do you have less in common than you think you do, and that part of your relationship is purely built on this mutual addiction, it could also be that you are actually more dangerously enabling each other, and that there is that sort of mutual support and mutual, I think they call it codependency, where you are able to conceal yourselves in this bubble and in essence convince each other that your behaviour is acceptable and right, and that's perpetuating each other's addictions, but also preventing each of you from getting into any form of recovery and setting yourselves on a path to a better life. And it may be in this instance that you find out that you're actually better apart and that you can both pursue better lives separately, or indeed that you can both get into an active recovery together. But again, this isn't something you should make a snap decision about. It's something that maybe you should talk about, distance yourself from gambling for however long it takes to make that realization, to make that decision as to whether or not this relationship actually has a long-term future, and then talk about it again and make a decision based on that. Like I say, I'm not an expert in this field. If it is a close romantic relationship, particularly if you're married, particularly if you have children, then dare I suggest you seek more expert advice, seek counselling, seek whatever. Okay, and as always, there'll be links in the description below. But like I say, when you make the decision to abstain from gambling, it will affect certain parts of your social life. But here's the positive side of all of this. If you are carrying friends, if you're carrying social relationships that are of no benefit to you other than being sort of mutual gambling relationships and mutually supportive in that respect, that is actually preventing you maybe from forming more productive, more constructive friendships and relationships in the future. And you may find that by distancing yourself from these people, and this isn't to say there's anything wrong with them, they are probably perfectly decent people, but distancing yourself from these people allows you to start to form new friendships, new relationships, which may be far more supportive and far more positive in your recovery and everything else that entails. Stay safe, stay sane. Like I say, Patreon link in the description below, and I shall speak to you all soon. Take care, everyone.